Oh, there's my microphone. That was a misfire. So happy Monday. Another Monday in May, 2022. Misfiring as always, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. So Rob Morales, RCO Network, coming at you live here on a Monday, talking about the Phoenix housing market with the bright, the beautiful, the precocious, the wonderfully delicious at particular times of the day, Miss Ashley Miller.
Hello, everyone.
There she's back here. We're back here on another Monday, Miss. I turned off the microphone before we started, so kind of a little bit of surprise. How's your ever invested in wood, Miss?
Well, kind of what are you referring to?
Do you purchase large sums of wood? Do you how do you measure your wood?
So, well, as you guys all know, I just got married, so I've never truly invested in wood, but I've used a lot of it, and then I decided one day to invest in it.
Oh, it's really? Yeah. There's a lot of puns that were coming up. So we wanted to start off today's show a little bit talking about lumber. You know, the word I got from last week was there were some lumber price changes going in the market. And so lumber contracts at the end of last week went in at a lower price for July. So, you know, you send out the contracts, they sign, and then they execute on a particular day. Happens with state contracts, especially like, government contracts. They procure and then they issue out in a particular day in the future. So what I heard is prices were dropping as of July. And if you look into, and this is why we're talking about wood today.
No, it's and you can show up the chart. The chart.
So today the lumber futures on the chart are looking pretty meek. I mean, coming into from last week, the price dropped significantly in lumber, the lumber futures, and then this morning just opened up at a really low rate. So there's a lot of things to infer about lumber prices because lumber in itself. What are houses made out of, Miss Miller?
Well, we call them stick built, so wood.
Oh, well.
Well, it depends on where you're from because I grew up in a brick built home.
Yeah.
I own a brick built home, but an average home is stick built, which means wood.
Yeah.
And I did recently read an article about how lumber prices are actually they dropped in half, but not necessarily in half for consumers.
Correct. I think with labor, I mean, just the price of lumber itself. So we're not including labor or anything else. We're just looking at basically commercial grade lumber. You know, exchanges, not necessarily retail lumber. I mean, if you go to Home Depot, the prices probably haven't changed because they're retail selling it.
Sure.
You know? But the stock price, the futures price, has decreased tremendously. So that I think is an inference in the future. And why is that, Miss?
And honestly, I've done so much research, and I have zero idea. It makes no sense to me. During COVID, I was at home with the boys, and we were bored as you could imagine.
Bored like wood?
Oh, we were bored in the house bored.
Never mind.
But our neighbor I know. So
get yourself together, Miller.
We had this really nice neighbor who was a woodworker, and he was building a set of cornhole or bags, whatever you guys want to call them. And we're like, wood? Oh, okay. Yeah, wood boards that you throw
the
bags
cornhole.
in. Yeah. Cornhole. And he gave us the plans for it, and we bought all the wood to purchase it and did it. And we sat in there, and I bought all the tools, and actually you can go on my, I think, TikTok. I believe I documented on TikTok. I was like, okay, we can do this again. We went back in. I was like, holy balls. Wood is expensive.
Yeah.
It doubled immediately.
It's a finite resource, man.
It takes a long time to go. So the story continues. Now we're having it. We did have a garage sale on Saturday morning before we left to go out of town. And I had a bunch of wood that I had left in the backyard, and it had rained, and the wood got distressed, and it swelled, and it was kind of got crooked and weird, and it sucked. Through a storm, sometimes your wood can get a little distressed. Do
you like crooked wood, Miss Miller? I know it's a personal question.
Not necessarily. I mean, it depends. Every piece fits perfectly where it belongs. So
it depends on if it's a shorter piece of wood, then you have limited options. But if it's a longer one, right? No.
I threw a lot.
Does length really matter?
No, it has to fit the right position. So I'm looking at all this wood in my backyard, and that had gotten wet. And and this is not a pun by any means. This is a true story. And I actually felt guilty for throwing it away. But there was, I mean, I guess I could have like re-wetted it and like compressed it and done that whole like Shazam and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, like I really just want to get my yard cleaned up and ready for like finishing our remodel, because it does take a long time. You know this. It takes a long time to remodel a property. Yep. And that's why we see these remodels taking so long. But I'm actually the one throwing away wood where companies are trying to buy wood. So what is the demand? I'm sorry. I just keep laughing when we're saying this. Like the demand right now, it's changing, and we're trying to understand it.
No, so the reason I brought it up, because, you know, lumber in itself is kind of a predictive indicator of new housing, new builds. So a lot of new construction is really something to consider. At least the inference that I wanted to pull from that is like, well, how is that affecting new construction? Are they anticipating lowering of prices because there's less demand for wood? Is there some less demand in the market because of inflation? If home buyers or home builders are struggling, you know, maintaining or producing some of these items, you know, the demand for wood could be pulling back a little bit.
So if I could look at what you just said about home builders,
lumber. We should say lumber.
Lumber. Okay. So lumber. With that being said, it's the demand of it was extremely high. Yeah. So when we have a demand, what ends up happening? Prices go higher. Yeah. But now the interest rates are raising. The demand is lowering because not as many people are looking to buy new builds. And a lot of people are pulling back from fix and flips because they're like, well, no, they're not pulling back from fix and flips. That's a total lie. They're pulling back from fix and flips that need actual more work than lipstick on a pig.
So, and again, yes, the inference when it comes to the stock price, you know, with lumber futures, is that this is more investors' interest, or I guess their interest in the price of the commodity itself. You know, if there is less investor interest, then there's probably less investor interest in new home buying. So I'm going to go back to those terms. So it got me curious. It got me thinking into a little bit more into stocks. So if you look at a lot of the these are the stocks that I follow. So Open Door, they do resale homes. You know, they don't necessarily purchase new homes unless they're on the resale market in order to flip. But as you can see with the stock price, it's declining. Same thing with Redfin. So Redfin is more of a data-driven company. They do research, and then they do some brokering too. So they sell houses mostly in the resale market. But the idea with this, as you look at the stock price, the investors aren't interested in Redfin. You know, even as an information or as a brokerage. And you continue on with Zillow. Zillow, the same thing.
People are like,
Zillow's predominantly
as well.
Is a I guess a marketing company to agents and lenders in the industry. So the information they are the money they make is through advertising, and that's why they pulled out of resale market. But again, another company on the decline. If you look at the XLRE Trust, so this is just basically a hedge fund of real estate. You see a declining market there too. Toll Brothers, so you get into the new builds. Toll Brothers, a lot of investor interest is declining or separating from that, because you can see on the 200-day moving average, there is less interest in Toll Brothers as a company. Same thing for Lennar. Lennar is one of the bigger manufacturers, new home builders in the country. And when you see a lot of these,
but they're not prominent in Arizona though.
I don't know what their percentage is, but they're one of the bigger name builders across the nation. And so when you see all this investor disinterest, you know that the housing market is anticipated going in a different direction than where it's at right now. On the ground level, as you're a buyer, you're seeing all these inflation. You're still, I did a contract this weekend. We offered $35,000 above list. We're still making offers way above that. We didn't waive the appraisal. We didn't waive inspection, but we waived as is. And so the thing is, if you're an investor or a long-term planner, the thing to anticipate is this market is on a decline.
It is, yeah.
Especially the interest in lumber. New home builds, people are pulling back. Investors are pulling back. So that's just a signal or something to kind of, get the wheels turning for you.
When I know at one point, home builders were reluctant to sell multiple lots to investors. Yeah. And now, again, as interest rates are rising, they're getting a little bit desperate. Yeah. So I just read an article from April of this year, 2022, that they are actually willing to now go back and sell to investors.
Yeah.
But the trajectory of it is still 14 to 16 months, which really means like 16 to 24 months. Let's be honest with everyone.
Yeah, I'll pull that information up too. So we were looking at this data from the Cromford report.
Yeah.
And you'll see here the new home builders continue to struggle with labor and supply shortage issues and estimate 14 to 16 months for home completion. So there's not a whole lot of, I think, enthusiasm on the short-term basis. If you are somebody looking for a home today, you're not necessarily waiting 14 to 16 months. If you're an investor, you're like, you want either a short-term gain investor or a long-term gain. And the long-term game on a potentially declining market, especially with interest rates, isn't necessarily there. So I see a lot of pullbacks from an investor basis.
Oh, huge pullbacks. And there's actually an article. Can you pull that article up real quick?
Which
Do
one?
you have it? The one about the new rules. The new rules for investors. So when a real estate agent purchases a home in this market, they have to disclose their real estate agent.
Yeah, I'll put
And it's part of the law. So there's
House
a new
bill.
law. So this actually came into fruition. The law passed April 22nd of 2022. It's actually the day I got married. Yay. So Governor Ducey, who I know some of you guys may or may not like him. I am a fan of him, and you can judge me or not judge me.
We're judging you.
But he did implement a law back March 2015 that people who did not have a cosmetology license could actually open up a salon. And I've owned my business and opened up a salon in May of 2015. And I'm not a licensed cosmetologist, but I'm a really freaking badass makeup artist. So I got to open a salon with my partner. With that being said, Governor Ducey really does look into the what is the word I'm looking for? And not idiosyncrasies. Like he's very detail oriented.
Idiosyncratic.
He pays attention to what's important and what is important to me. And I've lost my ass on purchasing a home as a new investor, and I put down a non-refundable $5,000 deposit.
Well, you got into a wholesale deal.
Yeah, I got into a wholesale deal that I really didn't know how deep I was into it.
No.
I had no idea. I didn't know. I assumed, which is my first problem, never assume anything, that it was a direct sale.
Yeah.
And come to find out, I was not that. Not only that, I wasn't assignee A and I wasn't assignee B. I was like assignee C. In fact, I was assignee C. Well, when I was like, hey, this house, like, I'm not sure this is a good deal.
Oh.
Try to go back. Well, they, being assignee C, had to go back to assignee B, had to go back to assignee A, who had to go back to the direct buyer. And then it just became this big debacle. It was a nightmare.
So for those people that are a little confused about what we're talking about, wholesaling in itself is that a seller sells a home, puts it on market. An investor comes in and decides, hey, I want to buy that property.
I'm going to buy your house for cash.
I'm going to make a cash offer, and then they have enough funds in a bank to show that they can.
And they want no appraisal, no inspection.
Oh
nothing.
yeah, it's like free and clear. Like, oh my God, such an awesome price. So what they do during the inspection period, typically 10 to 15 days, they will go and fish for buyers. Mm-hmm. They will never put a drop of money in the bucket, maybe just for earnest money, but outside of that, you can get that back. You go and fish for a buyer, and when you're talking about assignees, they're basically stacking assignees
selling
one for another. So if one falls out, yeah, and if one falls out, then they go to the next one, and then those people actually buy the house. But the wholesaler takes a small fee, like a procurement fee, and never even touch the property, never do anything. They disavow any knowledge of the property, and then you buy a home. You get to buy a home, but at the same time, you're not buying it directly from the seller. You're buying it from somebody else that's in a contract with the seller.
So that article that Robert had pulled up briefly was talking about how being a home seller or being a home buyer, typically these properties are not listed on the MLS, or maybe they are, and they're being taken off the MLS because there's a cash buyer that comes in. So if you're selling a property to somebody, they now have to disclose, just like a real estate agent, because a lot of people are acting as agents when they're really investors and wholesalers, which is totally fine. I'm not against it. Obviously, I'm not against it. No, but they have to disclose this information, which gives the seller a little bit more comfort, in my sense.
Yeah. So the seller knows fully that the person potentially buying the house isn't really buying the house or wholesaling it, which is a situation I came across just a couple months ago. We accepted a contract with a wholesaler, and the only reason I knew it was wholesale was because I saw an email saying, "Hey, we have this property for sale right now," and I'm like, "That's the same.
That's the same property.
That's the same picture I have." So I had no idea that they were wholesaling it, and they were trying to sell it for like $50,000 more just to fish for a buyer. And there's people out there that are, I would say, I would honestly say desperate enough to actually buy it at that price. And it's not fair, I don't think, to the buyer that knows they're not really buying it from a wholesaler. They think they're buying it from the seller.
Well, that law is changing because it's like
Because of that law that's
Article
changing.
2747, I believe, is what it is in
HB
2747. So what this implements is that whether you're a real estate agent, when it says real estate investor, that doesn't mean they have their license. When it says real estate wholesaler, that doesn't mean they have their license. I'd be very cognizant when you take an offer. So if you and Robert are selling your home, because he is a licensed real estate agent, when you get a cash offer, just be very mindful of whom that buyer is.
Yeah.
Because there is a chance that buyer is going to turn around and it's actually like very, very likely they're going to turn around and sell it to somebody else. So with that home, that whether you love it, like it, whatever your emotional attachment is to it, know who your buyers are. And for buyers, understand that you may be buying a property that was bought by an investor or wholesaler, and maybe you're like, oh, I'm going to pay cash for this, $37,000 over, and you're going to waive inspection, you're going to waive air conditioning or AC unit,
and
all that
people are
stuff.
desperate enough to do that.
And they are, and then all of a sudden you're like, F, and you get in, you're like, what the fuck? Because you bought it, a seller sold it to a wholesaler investor. They made it look nice and pretty, lipstick on a pig. You're the buyer. You come in, and you're like, well, I really want this house.
I don't think wholesalers are even cleaning things up.
But no, I mean, it does happen. And then you buy it and you waive all that. Now you're the third party in, and you have no idea. So this is just a what is it called? Like a warning sign, because not we all.
Y'all.
It does happen. So with this new article that's coming in, or it is in play now, it's making sure that these articles are disclosed, and it's very important that you're aware of what is happening. Like my sister wants to purchase this home. She's like, oh, it's got a bad AC. It has bad this. It has bad that. I'm like, for fuck's sakes. Okay, fine. But she's aware of it.
Yeah.
She's aware.
And to know where the money's going, especially earnest money. If you're depositing earnest money, you get that back regarding the new house bill. So if you're an assignee, for instance, you do get your earnest money back if the transaction canceled.
To not.
Yeah,
so even though it says that 5,000, 10,000, which is typical, 5,000 to 10,000 non-refundable earnest deposit. Yeah. If certain things are not disclosed, you can get your money back. They're trying to avoid people getting screwed.
It's predatory. It is
predatory. Yeah, it is. And I think it actually really is important for this article to come into play, regardless of whether I do like to invest in properties.
She gets all.
I do. I mean, it's fun and it's exciting.
That's why she's in real estate. It's exciting.
It's expensive.
It's a really exciting, career or field to be in.
But you'll lose your ass. You don't pay attention.
Yeah. Oh my God, the emotions in it are like, you'll one day you'll be a winner, the next day you'll be like, holy shit, I just lost my ass.
Yeah.
Just the swings from one day to the next are crazy, and I am used to them, but they do get you.
They do.
They bum you out sometimes.
Going back to lumber and the change and the dollar amount, and it's not just lumber, it's just material in general. Yeah. Material is constantly fluctuating. So when you get a quote on a certain thing, like we originally talked about new build, you mentioned escalation clause. I mean, that's a little like a cul-de-sac that I just took right there.
I have an article on that.
An escalation clause, to inform you guys, is when you go in and you say, this is, and you might be able to explain it better, but like, this is the most amount we're willing to pay for this property based upon X, Y, and Z.
So that's what the article was talking about, doing escalation clauses. If you're buying a new construction home, the anticipation that it's going to be more expensive by the time you actually finish buying the house. So you may get into contract for, let's say, 400,000. And after about a year, I mean, estimating 14 to 16 months, after about a year of constructing this thing, the prices of labor have gone up, prices of supplies have gone up. So you may exceed the price that I should say the money that they make off the sale of the home. So they're putting escalation clauses. So something to be mindful
important.
for.
It's so important to have an escalation clause.
Something for not for buyers, for sellers, sure, but something to be aware of. For sure, that home builders may be adding an escalation clause into these new contracts. I do know, and I had some experience this weekend where the new builds aren't accepting any more offers contingent upon the sale of a house. They're just not existent. So there's no such thing as like selling your house and then moving into a new build and waiting for it to construct. They're not even taking those, at least from one home builder this weekend.
It's intriguing. So when it says 14 to 16 months, I love this because
that's a long time.
3 months ago, this conversation would have been very, very different.
Yeah.
It would have been very different because home builders weren't selling to investors. And then now they're willing to sell more to investors because interest rates have gone up. The stock market's gone down. Lumber has gone down-ish. I mean,
the price of lumber's gone up.
Ish because if you were retail, like a regular retail versus a wholesale, like a wholesale meaning wholesale buying wood, not like wholesaler like buying houses, but wholesale, there's so much fluctuation with a dollar amount on it. So.
Yeah, so the inference with that is that there, from an investor standpoint, there is some, I think, reservation or hesitation to further invest in the housing market, knowing and believing that this is probably the end of the fun, as far as like making money off of real estate. So they're pulling back while home prices are still at their peak. We're still getting offers way over asking price. I'll pull those up actually.
Yeah, take me off screen so I can pick my nose.
Oh boy, here we go. Oh boy. So right now, I mean, if you look at the elevated prices of homes, people are still. So what's your target market? 500,000 to 600,000.
I would say if we look around, well, now Arizona is like 450 to 500. So look in that range.
450, 500. So the average is 17,000 over list right now. Somebody out there in the last 30 days offered 151,000 over list price on a home. That's what if you're reading that there in the little white box, that's what it's saying. Somebody offered in that price range 151,000 max over list price.
It's asinine, but it if we watch what's happening in other states like California, where their housing market is insanity. And so I'm not a huge TV watcher, but I recently started watching some of these shows because people are like, oh, don't
Selling
you
Sunset?
watch this? Yeah. Oh, I watched that. What the fuck?
It's not even about real estate, really.
It's so obnoxious. I can't even. Like, makes me want to puke. However, I do look at the houses and the pricing and all the noise that's involved in it. Yes, the views are pretty, whatever, but then these people in California get to sell their houses that, let's call it 1,700 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Like, that's like, in California, that's like $1 million. They could sell that house, come out here, buy one for $500,000, and still pocket whatever they have left, assuming that they have equity in their property over there. I mean, 1 plus 1 always equals 2. But point is these Californians, and not to point fingers, but they are doing this. They're driving our market. A lot of people are driving our market.
Well, people with discretionary income, it's not only just California, but it's Washington, it's Oregon,
for sure.
Illinois. I don't know how many Illinois plates I see around here, and it's not. It might be because Violet's from Chicago, but a ton of Illinois plates everywhere. People are getting out of these high tax bracket, areas and coming to. And COVID did this. Coming into areas where they can telecommute and work wherever. I have a guy that I met, doing the real estate thing where he moved from Florida out here, and he's like, he was going to quit if they didn't let him work telecommute. Yeah. But they let him work telecommute. So now he flies back to Florida every 3 months, and because he's a manager for some sort of whatever, and he does everything telecommute. So, but he lives out here, so it changed the game for telecommuting, and COVID changed the game for our labor market.
When I was traveling back and forth from Arizona to Denver, because one of my companies that I work for was in Denver, I was watching the housing market out there just skyrocket. This is back in circa 2019. right before COVID. Yeah, it was literally right like 18, 19, like the brink of the edge of it.
The cusp.
The cusp of like the end of it.
Yeah.
I would walk by these houses and go, what? Like you couldn't pay me. It was Denver, Colorado, like right there, like where the bridge is, and it's all pretty, and like it's called
there's a couple bridges.
Something Creek,
Walnut
Cherry Creek.
Oh.
So through Cherry Creek, right? So through Cherry Creek, and I'm looking at these cute little doll houses. They're just absolutely gorgeous. Like, oh, it's so cute. Like, reminds me of like this little house that you want to like live in, and just be best friends with your neighbor, and like wave over the wall. And then they're like, yeah, it's 500,000. I'm like, okay, fuck you, bye. Like, it's insanity.
It's crazy out there. Did you drive by the Purina factory? No. It's basically like if you ever. I lived in Denver for about a year.
I flew in and flew out. That's all I did.
And so my job. like Denver is kind of like Phoenix in the way there's freeways all the way around it.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like a big triangle. So the one triangle, I think I don't remember what highway it is, but you pass by there and you can smell the Purina dog factory. It's very pungent. It's very strong smell as you're driving through there.
It blows my mind. But what I will say for the people, and hopefully you can contest to this, is the sellers out there that have the ability, and we brought this up in the past, who have a family. Maybe they're expanding. Maybe they need more space because their littles are getting bigger, and they can commute. Like they can work, through their laptop, or what would you call it?
Telecommute.
Telecommute. Hopefully teleporting comes in soon. That's a whole nother topic. So that gives them, I have a whole story about that. I think this is another show, but that gives them an opportunity to take the equity they have in their property, freaking sell that bitch, take your family and move, I don't know, somewhere and take that equity and store it. Not in the stock market, FYI.
I mean, you really have to go to like really different locations. Like I have a family looking at going to Oklahoma.
Why not?
What the hell's in Oklahoma?
I don't know. Something.
Something cheaper.
Something cheaper. They have.
I will
say
they probably have cheaper gas prices out there.
I'm sure they do.
I went to Oklahoma. We drove through Oklahoma, coming from Illinois, and the prices down there were like $1 cheaper than they were here. It was insane. Literally
is insanity that if you are not super connected to Arizona and where you live right now, and you're only out here for the Sunshine State or maybe your arthritis, I have no idea, but you have equity in your property and you can telecommute, freaking take your money, stockpile it, put it in your mattress underneath your bed. There's plenty of shit to do in other states. In Oklahoma, I'm sure there is. Just Google it.
Are you encouraging the Californians that moved here to?
I'm encouraging I don't want the
You might lose California watchers, I will tell you, if you pipe on that. Uh-oh.
The other,
you can tell Ashley's a big Arizona fan. I've been here my whole life.
I know. I'll be 40 this year, and I'm just saying for families that are looking to expand and build a bigger home. Like our family is growing rapidly. Not rapidly, but we have children, and they're getting bigger, and things are happening. And there's we can't get a bigger house right now, and we have equity in our house.
All the money you made just rolls into another one.
Yeah. So, but I have to stay here. I can't leave Arizona because I have. So
you're not taking your own advice.
But I have to stay here.
Oh.
So for somebody who doesn't have family here, who doesn't have a career, like a technical career here, that's business to business, like on the ground, boots and
like they don't work for Intel or Boeing,
right? Like boots in the fur, whole world's looking at her. Anyway, so
it's always a good day when Ashley dances.
if you can take that, I know you love the Arizona sun and it's gorgeous, but take your freaking $150,000. To freaking Oklahoma, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts.
So you don't think the housing market's gonna, available inventory? Like, what's your opinion? Do you think we're gonna have available inventory soon?
We have available inventory, but interest rates are so high that people can't afford it.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because we do have a housing supply that keeps coming up. I'm going to pull that up right now. Look at that. Over the last couple weeks, if you follow us here on the channel, you'll notice that the housing supply has been increasing. Now almost a full month. We're at 0.8 supply. So basically roughly 3 weeks. So 0.75 is 3-ish weeks. So just over 3 weeks. If we were to not have any more listings on the market right now, we would run out in less than a month. But it went from half a month, like at the beginning of the year, to almost a full month. We're getting closer to having more inventory. What does that mean? It means, we're not really going anywhere because it's still competitive, but it is a nice sign for buyers to show that
buyers are scared right now because of interest rates, which is actually kind of funny.
Well, there should be prices down.
Because the interest rates, like I remember we talked about this, like when I bought my first house, interest rates were in the 8s.
Yeah.
And now they're like fluctuating like 5.5, 6.5 ish, depending on your credit score and your scenario.
I bought my first at 8.
But my current interest rate in my house, I think, is like 2.75. I don't know, 3.25. So I can't even. I actually
You're not leaving everywhere, anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. But I do want a bigger house. However, I'm just gonna suck it up, Buttercup, because I have to stay here. But if you don't have to stay here, you have no legalities, like no legal obligation, nothing that's truly keeping here, and your mother-in-law doesn't count. Actually, you could probably move to freaking Oklahoma and get her own house on your land and never see her again. It'll be okay. Just really analyzing where you are, where the market it is.
Yep.
Reach out to Robert. Understand how much you can liquefy your house. Easy. And you have connections in other states. Not that I'm trying to move people out of here, but I want people to take advantage and the equity in their property and understand that, well, they're not going to make more land, and housing prices in Arizona are going to constantly move up. Put the money in your freaking bank. Put it in your bank.
Well, it's the end of the show, miss. Can you believe it?
I know.
Ashley gets really geared up and really passionate about these things.
I do.
So I do feel that there is a change in the market for sure. Let me post interest rates again. Last week it was pretty damn near over 6, but I think this week it bellowed down a little bit. This is on average in Arizona, so around $500,000.
Wait, change your credit score because the average person's is 640, between 620 and 640.
That's the average?
Yeah. No, 620.
Oh, yeah, I thought you meant 7. My bad.
Actually, go down further.
Why am I going further?
Because 620 and 640,
I don't know if anybody can buy a house at 620.
But that's what I'm saying. That's the average person's credit score is 620 to 640.
How do you know? Is that?
Because I read a lot.
Oh. I don't know I thought it was around 640 to buy a house anyway.
Yeah, 640. Well, no, I'm saying the average purchaser is between 620 and 640.
Yeah, I don't know anything about credit scores.
That's almost 7%.
Yeah, it's horribly ridiculous right now compared to a year ago, because a year ago we were about a third of what the interest rates are today. And it's amazing the way things are going. I mean, I do see people still FOMOing. I think there will be a time in the next 6 months, for those buyers where sellers will get that FOMO. They're in that particular situation where I want to say it's more in the rental market and more in retirement markets, where if you look at stocks, there's been huge sell-offs these last couple of weeks, and 401ks, investment and retirement stocks have taken a tremendous hit. I've looked at my portfolio; it's gone down. I'm 40. I still got a few years to go. But if you're 60 and above, you're really concerned about your investments at this point, and the biggest asset you have right now is your home. So do I see a crack in the system? Absolutely. I think it's going to be more in that adult community and more in the rental market. As things turn, I think there'll be a little bit of a seller FOMO, to try and get the most amount of money that they can these last few months. I don't anticipate that happening until the end of the year, though.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a house, I absolutely, you have to make decisions regarding your situation in the next few months if your lease is coming up or you need to move. But just anticipate that if you can hold on, I think there'll be some. You'll see some in July this year because that's when the market simmers down. But I think definitely in December. You'll see
spring is good. Once it gets to summer, things kind of change. If you are renting a home and you're still on the fence because interest rates are going higher, I cannot guarantee you, but I'm relatively confident that you'll be able to purchase a home that you want where your mortgage will still be lower than what your rent income is, because investors they're in a little bit of a control right now.
Yeah. And
we have no rent control in Arizona. They're raising it. So do the math. Get the Excel spreadsheet that we posted a long time ago. Maybe we'll post it again. Or
connect with Ashley.
Yeah, investing in your own personal property is extremely important. Paying your rent is investing in somebody else. So we always want to invest in ourselves. Fill your cup before you fill somebody else's.
Well said, Miss. And as we wrap up today, I appreciate your time and effort. I appreciate your vigor, your just passion for investing and the people that we serve. So, Rob Morales, our CEO Network, here every week with the greatest of all great American title reps, Ashley Miller. We'll be catching you guys next week. So if you want to tune in roughly around the 2, 3, sometimes 4 o'clock hour, depending on what happens, we'll be here for you. So we'll see you guys next Monday.